This is a video explaining and showing you how to make a Lapbook to help us with subject-verb agreement, as well as the endings for the present tense regular verbs. So we're using the present tense regular to teach us how to conjugate verbs and to give us the foundation to keep conjugating them with more endings in the future. So we're going to start up here with the subject pronouns because this is really our basis of how we determine what endings we're going to use. They're based on the pronouns. They need to agree with the pronoun that we would use in that sentence. So you should have cut a half sheet for this piece from a second folder. If you haven't done that already, you will cut your folder in half along the crease that's already along it. So this crease, you will cut it in half. So you would end up with one sheet like this, one half sheet like this. And then you'll cut that again in half. And that's how you'll get this piece up here. And it's a little hard to see on this notebook, but you need to place a piece of tape on the outside, on the front, and also along the back. And it's really important that you do not make these overlap because if not, they will not fold down. Like this one folds down really nicely. Okay, so the fold for the subject pronouns that you need to make is you take a blank sheet of paper like this, you fold it in half like a hamburger, and that half sheet, once you fold it in half, you'll cut it along this edge. Once you've made that cut, just take one of the sides and you'll make shutters like so. Okay? So that's to prepare you to make the fold for the subject pronouns. On the left side, I've given you the 3 sentence diagrams that all of our sentences fit in. And I wrote them there so that you can see what the function of the subject pronouns are, because we're going to learn more pronouns in the future and things that mean her and his and your or yours. So there are a lot of different pronouns, but these are specifically the ones that we use to talk about subjects. So this is to show you what place and what job these pronouns have in a sentence. And then at the bottom you have in questions, I'm showing you that if you were to use a subject pronoun, put it after the verb with a question word. Okay, so here, when you have made your shutters, you can go ahead and write the words that you see here, which are our pronouns in English. And this stands for informal if you need to write it out. This stands for formal because, as you know, we have an informal you and a formal you. And then on this side, SP stands for Spain because this is the you all, the you plural that is used in Spain. And this is the you all plural used in, actually this also says Spain. It's a little hard to read. But this is Latin America, LA for Latin America, so this is the y'all that we use in Latin America. And just as a recap, that used to be formal and informal, so sometimes you might come across ustedes in Spain or in literature that's Spanish, but that is just more of an old form of the formal you. But now it's mainly by region, and most of the time they will use vosotros in Spain. Okay, so then under the flap, you'll write yo for I. So hopefully you know this already, but just to recap, and you can pause this video wherever you need to as you're making it. Under you, informal is tú. Don't forget the accent mark, because without the accent mark, it means your. But this word is you. This is the subject pronoun. Okay, you formal is usted. Okay, so this is the you singular. This whole side is the singular side. That's why we break it up this way. Okay, he and it is él. Remember, we have gender in every noun in Spanish, so we will use el for both people and objects. So we know whether we're going to use el for it if it's a masculine noun that we're referring to, such as el lápiz or el escritorio. She and it is similar. We have it here for our objects that are feminine, such as la chica, oh, that's a person. La tarea would be ella. So under there we have ella. Okay, going on to our other side, we've color-coded them by gender. So blue stands for male and feminine for female. Under the we for male, sorry for the shakiness. Hopefully you can still read it. We have nosotros for masculine, so that's when we have a group of all males or all males and female. Under the pink, we have nosotras, that's a group of all females. Y'all is vosotros for all males or males and female, you all. We have vosotras for all female group of you all. And then we go, this is under the third person conjugation, even though technically you is second person, but we conjugate it like they. So it's important not to get confused there. In Latin America, we use ustedes, and we use the same verb endings as we do for they. So under they, we have two forms. Again, this can be people or objects. Under the masculine, we have ellos, and under the feminine, we have ellas. Okay, so you may, in my class, choose to use vosotros or ustedes, but you need to be consistent. If you're using vosotros, you have to use the vosotros verb endings, and if you're using ustedes, you must use the ustedes verb endings. We'll see those verb endings in just a second. Okay, so come down here. And I'm going to show you next the folds for the verb endings. So we have the AR endings, which you should know already. And we have color-coded them by the person, because oftentimes we will talk about conjugations as in, what's the first person singular form of this verb, or third person singular form, because it's easier than saying ellos, ellas, and ustedes. So we've color-coded it yellow for first person, red for second person, and blue for third person, and then labeled the sides singular and plural. So we've written the pronouns in English so that you can quickly associate the ending with the pronoun, because oftentimes we won't use the pronoun in Spanish. So you want to just be able to look at the ending on the verb and say, oh, I know that's talking about I. Okay, so under there we have o, and on the back I've written the pronoun again in Spanish, which is yo, the informal you underneath, and you can keep the colors going on the inside too, even though we don't have them here, but you may if you would like. Under tú, our ending is as. Under he, she, it, remember we use it for objects too, so if I'm talking about el escritorio or la tarea, we are also going to use these verb endings. And this also includes usted. So again, even though it's you, which is technically a second person, it goes under the third person conjugation. So we have a is our ending for el, ella, and usted. Okay. Under we have amos is our nosotros or nosotras ending. Under y'all, SP for Spain, we have ais for vosotros or vosotras. Don't forget the accent goes over the A. And then y'all in Latin America, which is ustedes, and they, ellos or ellas, we have an. And you have them written there, ellos, ellas, and ustedes. Okay. And how you make this fold, I'm sorry, I should have explained that before, is just like you did with the other fold, you will take half, you'll fold the sheet in half, And then you'll fold it in half again, and you'll cut that out, so it won't be a fold, but rather just one single sheet, and you make shutters again with that sheet. Okay. And then you need to label it the AR, because these are the AR verb endings. And then we've put those packets that I handed out to you, like so, and we just divided our AR verbs in half because they don't all fit in one pocket. AR verbs are actually the most common verbs in Spanish, so that's why we have more of them. Okay, up here, same with the ER. It works just the same. I'm just going to unfold it for you there. It's O es a, hemos es en. Okay, and make sure that you are writing singular and plural up at the top, so you can see the way that we're organizing our verb endings. And we will write all of our conjugations this way the more that we learn. Okay, and on the next page we have the IR endings, or the next flap I should say. And under here, hopefully you remember this, but if not, that's okay. These endings look almost exactly the same as the ER endings, except for two are different, and that's the nosotros and vosotros. So we have O es e, hemos is en, and don't forget your accent over the I in the vosotros form. Okay, and so for each of these flaps, again, we've put a pocket for the IR verbs that we've learned so far in Spanish, and also the ER verbs that we've learned so far in Spanish. So you can use this fold to go over your verbs every once in a while. These will give you a great basis to speak in Spanish and to understand quite a big deal of Spanish, since every sentence requires a verb. It's really important to have a good working set of verb vocabulary that you can use, and then that way in class when we're doing writing activities, you don't need to look up a verb every time that you want to write a sentence. Okay, and up here we're going to go over to the subject pronoun, and I actually label it substitution machine, but sometimes I accidentally call it conjugation machine, but I'd like you to write substitution. It's okay if you wrote conjugation though, because they're very similar. This machine does help us conjugate, but specifically it helps us conjugate because it helps us figure out how to substitute the subject pronoun. So this gives you a template for how to plug in any sentence that you want to form into the machine. And so outside the machine is Spanish, inside the machine is English, and outside, again at the bottom, is Spanish. So I'm going to take these cards out so that you can see our output. Okay, so this is just a sample sentence, and it's important that you color code it. Use a different color for el perro y la gata, the dog and the cat, and they, than the rest of it, because this is sort of our template. And these are the things that we would plug in depending on the sentence that we would use. Okay, so your fellow student here used a lighter green for the template and black, but you could keep that all one color if you wanted. But it's important that this is a different color. And this. Okay. So the goal for this subject pronoun substitution machine is that we're trying to figure out how to choose the verb ending, because I want to say, so this is an example, I want to say the sentence, the dog and the cat dance bachata. Okay, well, I know how to say the dog and the cat, I know how to say to dance, and I know how to say bachata. That's just the name of the type of dance. Okay, so the only thing I don't know how to do yet, though you may know how to do this already, but just assume you don't know how to do it yet, is how to conjugate by lar, because it's not a complete sentence unless I conjugate it. It's now in the infinitive form, meaning that verb has no subject, and we need it to have a subject in order to form a sentence. So what we do is we need to get to the subject pronoun in order to find the ending, because as we see here, we have a subject pronoun Like if our subject pronoun is you, I would choose that ending. If it's he, I would choose this. But oftentimes the sentence that we're starting with doesn't have a pronoun, it just has a noun, a specific noun, the dog and the cat. So we need to figure out what pronoun we would use for the dog and the cat in order to choose what ending. So this is a step-by-step process to help those of you who particularly struggle with this, and sometimes there are complicated subjects that even if you think you have it down, it can still be tricky. So I used 2 singular nouns plus an and to really show you how this process works, because this is one of the more complicated things to conjugate. Because it looks like our subject would be singular, like the dog would be it. But there are 2, so it's actually going to have a plural ending. So what we do is we translate the subject, which is el perro y la gata, that's our subject. We translate it to English. Okay, so the dog and the cat dance bachata. Okay, so this is the noun given. That's what that's written there, the noun that we are given as the subject. So if we want to talk about them again in order to not repeat the dog and the cat, we would use they in English. Okay, that's our pronoun for the dog and the cat. So imagine these 2 sentences flowing together in speech. I would say the dog and the cat dance bachata, they dance it every day. Rather than saying the dog and the cat dance bachata, the dog and the cat dance it every day, it helps me to be able to say they, so I don't repeat over and over and waste my voice. So that's the pronoun we would use in English. So then we take, I think this is actually spelled a little bit wrong. It should be B-A-I-L, and then that's a plus sign. So that's the stem of bailar here. Remember, when we conjugate, we're taking off that A-R, E-R, or I-R, and we're taking the stem. And these are just our AR endings to show you how this works. But if you were working with an ER verb or an IR verb, you would use the ER, IR verb endings. Okay, and so we now choose the ending that goes with they, and as you can see, we've circled that here and it's on. Now I add on to my stem bail, and I can plug it back into the Spanish sentence. El perro y la gata bailan bachata. Now we have a Spanish sentence. Now we're speaking Spanish. Okay. So then over here, the last fold we have is just a index card folded in half like a hamburger. This is to help us with subjects like the one we just looked at, the dog and the cat, because these are the ones that can trip us up most often. This is when we have 2 subjects, and they're separated by E, which means and that's why this is titled E compounds. Okay, so this shows us which pronoun we would choose if we're looking at this type of construction. So I have noun written there to refer to any type of noun that is not a pronoun, such as the pencil or Sally or the children. Okay, so anything that is not already a pronoun. And so this one, the first one, is any noun plus yo. So that would be like Jerry and I, or the children and I, los niños y yo, Jerry y yo. And because it's I know it's first person plus a noun, that makes it plural. So that means I'm going to use nosotros or us, which is we, and I'll use the nosotros ending, which is amos, amos, or imos. Okay. Here is a noun, any noun plus tú or usted. They both are the singular you. So even though those are singular, if I have it combined with another noun, I need to use the plural you. So depending on which country I'm in or which form I choose to use, this would either be ustedes or vosotros or vosotras. Okay, so if I'm using vosotros, I need to use is, or is, En ustedes, I need to use an or en. And that means you all. Okay. So that would be something like María y tú, or María y usted. So I would say María y usted bailan, or María y tú bailáis if I'm in Spain. Okay. So noun plus a noun is any noun and another noun. So I could say the pen and the pencil. And for that, I'm going to use ellas and ellas or ellos. So, and I'll do that based on the gender. So if I'm saying pen and pencil, that's actually a good example. So pen, there's a couple words for it, but the one we're most familiar with is la pluma, which is feminine, and pencil is el lápiz, which is masculine. Because it's a combination of masculine and feminine, I'm going to choose ellos if I were writing out the pronoun, although it doesn't make a lot of a difference if you're not writing the pronoun because you would just use on and or en for both of those. But if I said la pluma y la carpeta, then I would use ellas because those are both feminine. Okay. So when I look at a sentence to conjugate it, I can use to conjugate the verb that is in the sentence, which is a lot of worksheets that we have or handouts that we have. I can actually take out this folder, so it might be helpful to bring it with you to class or to use it when you're doing homework. And let's say you see an ER verb in the sentence, so like comer, for example, and you look at your subject. So let's say my subject is los niños. Let's say I have in a sentence, los niños, a blank space, and then the rest of the sentence. And I'm supposed to fill in that blank space with comer. Okay, well, now I can look over to this subject pronoun constitution machine, and I can plug los niños in here, and that would be the boys dance bachata. They dance it every day. So I'm going to use my they ending, which I can remind myself of that if I don't remember by going over to this fold and lifting up that flap that says they, and I get en. So now I can take the er off of comer and add en, and I get en. Los niños comen. So, por ejemplo, los niños comen pollo. The boys eat chicken. And now I have a full sentence, and I am communicating in Spanish. So that is our, again, subject, verb, agreement Lapbook. So if you could label that on the outside as such, and then in parentheses write AR verb, write regular verbs in parentheses so that you know those are the ones we're working with in this Lapbook.